The pink letter has been a point of speculation, theory crafting, and some pretty heated debates. This series, I want to discuss the pink letter and the theories about who wrote it. The pink letter, or bastard letter as it's sometimes referred to as, is the letter delivered to Lord Commander Jon Snow at Castle Black in A Dance with Dragons. The letter itself is sealed with pink wax, which is used by House Bolton and is addressed to Bastard. When Jon reads the letter, it says, "Bastard, your false king is dead, bastard. He and all his hosts were smashed in 7 days of battle. I have his magic sword. Tell his red whore, your false king's friends are dead, their heads upon the walls of Winterfell. Come see them, bastard. Your false king lied, and so did you. You told the world you burned the king beyond the wall. Instead, you sent him to Winterfell to steal my bride from me. I will have my bride back. If you want Mance Rayder back, come and get him. I have him in a cage for all the North to see. Proof of your lies. The cage is cold, but I made him a warm cloak from the skins of the 6 whores who came with him to Winterfell. I want my bride back. I want the false king's queen. I want his daughter and his red witch. I want this wildling princess. I want his little prince, the wildling babe. And I want my reek. Send them to me, bastard, and I will not trouble you or your black crows. Keep them from me, and I will cut out your bastard's heart and eat it. Ramsay Bolton, true-born lord of Winterfell." So this letter is basically saying Stannis' army was destroyed after 7 days of fighting, Stannis is dead, and Ramsay has his sword, Lightbringer. Mance is alive, captured, and caged, and Ramsay knows who he is. Ramsay skinned the spearwives that went with Mance and used their skins to make a cloak for Mance to keep himself warm. Ramsay currently does not have possession of Theon or fake Arya, and he is demanding for Jon to give up fake Arya, Theon, Stannis' wife and child, Vale, Mance's baby, and Melisandre, or he will come after Jon and the Night's Watch. Before speculating on who wrote the letter, let's recap what is going on in the North when this letter is received by Jon. Stannis has left the Wall and begun his campaign of the North. By the time a blizzard begins, Stannis has marched from Deepwood Motte that he successfully took back from the Ironborn, and is going towards Winterfell. Last we know, Stannis is at the Crofters' village 3 days' ride from Winterfell and is preparing to attack the Boltons. While Stannis was heading south of the Wall to begin his campaign of the North, Jon sent Mance Rayder, Glamour to look like Rattleshirt, and 6 spearwives to Winterfell to rescue who he believes is his sister, but is really Jane Poole, pretending to be Arya Stark. The last we hear about Mance and his spearwives is in A Dance with Dragons, in Theon chapter number 1. In it, Mance, disguised as Abel, sings for Roose, and the spearwives try to rescue Jane. They get her and Theon to the parapets of Winterfell, but when Jane starts screaming, they are discovered. The spearwives fight, with some deaths occurring, and Theon throws himself and Jane over the battlements. Theon and Jane are discovered by Mors Umber and brought to Stannis Baratheon. Stannis keeps Theon with him at the Crofters' village and decides to send who he thinks is Arya to the Wall. When Jon reads the letter he believes, despite others such as Tormund not believing what the writer said to all be true, that some of the letter must be true, and decides to march on Winterfell. Very shortly after announcing that decision, Jon is stabbed to death by members of the Night's Watch. So that's an overview of the letter and what exactly was going on when that letter was received and shortly after the letter was received. So first, I want to start with a theory that it is in fact Ramsay who wrote the letter. In future videos, I'm going to talk about other characters and their potential of being the author instead of Ramsay. I personally am not in love with any particular theory. I do have one that I think is probably more true than the others, but I don't really have a bias towards it. So the order of which I talk about characters and them being the potential author is not indicative of my theory preference. Okay, starting with Ramsay, why do some think he wrote the pink letter? Well, Ramsay definitely had the motivation to write the letter. There's the motivation of wanting Jane and Theon back for multiple reasons. First, he would probably like to keep torturing them, especially since they successfully got away, and that probably pisses him right off. He doesn't like his toys getting away or being taken away. Second, Jane being out there runs the risk of being exposed as not Arya, and therefore hurting the Boltons, and therefore Ramsay's, claim to Winterfell. The longer she's out among the Northerners, the more likely someone will realize she's a fake. Though we know some people at Winterfell are already suspicious of that. The longer she's out, it also makes Ramsay look bad. You can't even keep your wife? Arya Stark of Winterfell hated you so much, she ran away? Why do we want you to be the Lord of Winterfell? Especially after your father eventually dies? There's also motivation in asking for Stannis' wife, child, and Red Witch, along with the Wildling Princess, Vale, and Prince, Mance's child. Or who they think is Mance's child, but really is Gilly's baby. Ramsay demanding these hostages could be him simply imitating his father. Roose demanded hostages of the Northerners, and now Ramsay demands his own hostages. Look, Dad, I'm a big boy now, and not a mad dog. I can make strategic decisions just like you. Ramsay isn't the brightest, but even he has to know taking hostages of two people that were, or are causing problems in the North will help his family hold the North. Besides motivation to get his toys back and remain Lord of Winterfell, rubbing in Jon's face that he defeated Stannis, which he likely believes he will be able to do even if he doesn't have that victory at the moment, is right up Ramsay's crazy alley. So is bragging about killing women and sewing their skin into a cloak and leaving the king beyond the wall to freeze to death. As well, this letter mimics the style of Ramsay's other letters he sent. The usage of the word bastard over and over again also mimics Ramsay. Ramsay has had a huge chip on his shoulder about being a bastard for a very long time. He hated it. He's now legitimized, and Jon Snow is not. Of course, Ramsay, who lost his toys, Theon and Jane, would want to use the word bastard, something that always hurt him, to inflict as much pain as possible on Jon and get his toys back. Really, I find the repeated use of bastard to be the strongest evidence for Ramsay being the author. But there is another character that calls Jon bastard, and I'll get to that in another video. Calling himself Trueborn Lord of Winterfell is also another way to rub in Jon's face what he has and to hurt him. Further evidence for Ramsay writing this letter is Ramsay has the means to send the letter. He has access to maesters who have ravens that fly between Winterfell and Castle Black, and pink wax to seal the letters with, something House Bolton uses. How many other characters would have access to ravens that fly to Castle Black and pink wax? Okay, so there's definitely evidence that Ramsay wrote the pink letter, but what is the evidence against Ramsay being the one who sent the letter? First, Ramsay's known handwriting could be a huge hint he didn't write it, but it could really go both ways with that piece of information. So we know that Jon has noticed the large spiky handwriting of Ramsay before. So has another character. But when Jon reads the pink letter, he doesn't note that it has the same spiky handwriting. Of course, just because he doesn't mention it doesn't mean it isn't there. It would be curious if it was in a different handwriting style and Jon didn't notice it though. But maybe he assumes a maester wrote it, or he's so emotional from the letter he's not thinking clearly. However, there are others that seem very sure that if the letter was in different handwriting than what Jon was used to from Ramsay, he would have noticed and pointed it out. Even Tormund suggests the letter has false information, so why wouldn't Jon take a moment to consider if the handwriting and style matches what he knows of Ramsay? Perhaps forgery could happen, but Stannis and Mance wouldn't know Ramsay's handwriting. Theon may know and could forge it, but might not have the skill for it. Moving on, there are parts of the letter that definitely aren't true and lies on Ramsay's part, but that doesn't mean he didn't write it. Ramsay is not above lies. Ramsay likely hasn't defeated Stannis by the time this letter is sent. As George has said, Stannis the Manus is still alive currently. And if they did fight, it wasn't 7 days of battle in a blizzard. That's just crazy. Why even say 7 days of battle? Kinda sounds like someone else is bragging about it taking Ramsay 7 days to defeat him, or exaggerating the story hoping the reader will believe it's Ramsay writing it. But maybe Ramsay learned through torturing the Spearwives and/or Mance enough information to write the letter and pretend like he had killed Stannis and taken his sword. Interestingly, there's a theory floating around that Baratheon soldiers are pretending to be Karstark men, and Manderly is working with Stannis. These pretending characters come back and report that Stannis is dead to Ramsay. Ramsay then rides home and writes his letter to Jon. So in that case, Ramsay would actually believe Stannis was dead based on the report from Stannis' men pretending to be Karstarks and the Manderly's men pretending to be loyal to the Boltons. Since the handwriting may not be the strongest point and Ramsay isn't above lying about Stannis, I think a huge first clue that this might not be Ramsay writing the letter is that no skin was sent with it. Think about Ramsay. That guy has a send people pieces of skin fetish going on. It has to be a kink or something for him. The fact that Ramsay flayed 6 spearwives and didn't send even a little piece to Jon is a bit suspicious and out of character for Ramsay. With 6 spearwives, he had enough to send a little patch of skin and still give Mance a nice warm cloak. But there's also a counter to that asking, what if Ramsay was in a rush to send the letter? He gets back to Winterfell after hearing of Stannis' defeat from the men pretending to be his men, and quickly writes and sends the letter because the situation with the Northerners at the castle is getting tense. He needs fake Arya back now. Another piece of damning evidence is Ramsay writes his letters in what appears to be blood or flaky brown ink, but Jon doesn't mention that detail, just like he doesn't mention any large spiky handwriting. That's something a character would point out, but again, maybe Jon is in a distracted state. The word sealed with a smear of pink wax is also damning. This may mean no press or stamp was available to the writer, which, if it were Ramsay, why wasn't the Bolton seal used? This may mean no press or stamp was available to the writer, which, if it were Ramsay, he would definitely have access to an emblem stamp, and we know he's used one in the past. As well, would Ramsay be using Winterfell's colored wax now that he's Lord of Winterfell, or would he stick with his house's color? There is always a chance he didn't have access to a press for the wax, of course, but that seems a bit unlikely. Next, why did Ramsay write Reek? Theon or Turncloak would be better since Jon would probably have no idea who Reek is. It almost appears as if using Reek is a way for someone other than Ramsay to make the letter appear legitimate. Though if we really think about it, it is an odd choice to write Jon telling him to send his bride and Reek back. Ramsay knows they were in the Crofters' village, Jane was sent somewhere else, and Theon is a prisoner of Stannis. Why would Ramsay assume Jane and Theon were already at the wall? He should know them both being there would be highly improbable, if not just because of the time. Maybe he's planning ahead. Perhaps Ramsay believes if Theon is with Jon, Jon would then know who Reek is and know who he is referring to. Theon would fill him in. Oh, yeah, that's my pet name. Lastly, there's other word choices that are definitely odd in this letter and make some believe that Ramsay isn't the author. Black crows is a term wildlings use, not typically Northerners. Northerners will call them members or brothers of the Night's Watch, though admittedly we have heard those below the wall call them crows before, and calling them black crows could be Ramsay trying to be insulting towards them. Wildling prince and princess is another odd choice. I doubt Ramsay would call them any type of royalty, and instead would continue to insult them. What about saying whores in this letter? This isn't a term Ramsay uses, even if it feels like something he would use. But there are some other characters, who again I'll talk about later, that do like to use the term whore. Also, it's a little weird Mance is the only one referred to by his actual name in the letter. Why just Mance? Why does he get the special treatment? Ramsay is being awfully odd about what he calls people in this letter. Finally, the part where he mentions the heads on the wall was odd in itself. Why did he say their heads were on the wall for all to see? House Bolton flays people, and they hang people. Ramsay loves flaying people. He has a special knife and place in his heart for it. So why would he mount their heads on the wall? Not very Ramsay-like. So there's a lot of thoughts swirling around whether Ramsay is the author or not. Some people are diehard in the "it was Ramsay" camp. And there is strong evidence and motivation for Ramsay to write the letter. However, there's some pretty heavy evidence that he didn't. So next video, I want to move on to the next suspect for authorship of the letter, Mance Rayder. But what do you think? Do you believe Ramsay wrote the letter? Or do you think there's way too much evidence pointing to another character? Thanks for watching. Please like the video, subscribe, and hold on to your butts because a lot more Pink Letter videos are coming, along with other Game of Thrones: A Song of Ice and Fire videos as well.